Welcome to another text class with Jan and Timothy at the Little Garden in Sedona. Pick up your book and read along with us. We would love to have you. Okay, so today we are in A Course in Miracles, chapter 10, The Idols of Sickness. That's the name of the chapter, and in the Foundation for Inner Peace version, it's on page 181.
When we finish this chapter, we'll have gone a third through the text.
Okay, yeah. Well, I've gotten a lot out of studying this with you, even though it's I don't know how many times we've gone through the text, but every time it gets more personal and more usable.
Yeah.
More usable.
Yeah.
All righty. Eric, do you think you could read the first paragraph? And please stop as you go and give us comments, because there's so much that might strike you as being commentable.
Okay. Nothing beyond yourself can make you fearful or loving, because nothing is beyond you. Time and eternity are both in your mind and will conflict until you perceive time solely as a means to regain eternity. You cannot do this as long as you believe that anything happening to you is caused by factors outside yourself. You must learn that time is solely at your disposal and that nothing in the world can take this responsibility from you. You can violate God's laws in your imagination, but you cannot escape from them. They were established for your protection and are inviolate as your safety. I mean, that just sums up the entire course in one paragraph, doesn't it?
Has a lot.
Yeah. So whether you're fearful or loving or whatever you're experiencing, it's all within you.
Yeah.
Nothing is caused by anything outside yourself.
Yep.
And it's talking about time and eternity as well, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The bit about nothing is outside of yourself, we can grasp a lot more easily, well, speaking for myself anyway, than the time and eternity bit. Because, I mean, you're in control of time is just like, what? How can that be? You know, it's that's a really difficult one to try and grasp.
Well, you know how I resolve that is the idea that time can be used. So the past and the future and the present can be used to remember what's real, what's eternal. If we sacrifice the eternal part of our mind and say it's all about getting something done and I better speed along and remember the past so I can figure out the future. I'm sorry. All that, it's just a matter of what's most important, what serves what. If time, like I'm going to take all the time it needs to find peace in this moment.
Mm-hmm. So in that lesson, I mean, this is really reflecting the holy instant and the holy relationship, because it's using both time and space in here. And in the sense of space, he's saying there's nothing outside of you, and time, your concept of time is within you. So a lot of the mind training is I can see that I'm thinking of the past, like what this person did to me 2 days ago. And then if I'm going to meet them again, I can see that I'm anxious about meeting them. And so that's where he's saying you can see when you're thinking in past terms or future terms. And you can decide, I can come into the present.
Mhm.
And the Course's claim is that if you're really in the present, all that will be there is miracles and forgiveness,
Right.
right? But the idea that we have control over time, like he said in that, I place the future in the hands of God. He said, what he's saying about time, we just can't get. I mean, we just can't really understand that. But what we can see is that in the present, I can change my mind
Right.
about what's outside me, what's inside me. I can change my mind. And then I can go forth in time with that present understanding that there's forgiveness.
But he's saying not only can you do that, you've got a responsibility to do that. That's what he's saying, isn't it? Nothing in the world can take this responsibility from you.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a learning process.
That was
Five,
doing the. Go ahead, Kathy.
you can violate God's laws in your imagination, but you cannot escape from them. That doesn't even sound threatening anymore. It's like God's laws are nothing beyond yourself can make you feel for a loving, that you've got free will. It's like, it's just, I just thought that was really nice.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's both empowering and a sense of responsibility also.
Mhm.
Like this, like it's today's, if you're doing a workbook today, it's basically saying, just own that they're your thoughts and that you don't want them, but they've already been replaced.
Mhm.
So we're just
Right.
accepting this. So that's why we don't have to strive to how can I be miracle thinking. That's already there. It's already to be given to us. We just have to see I'm making it up and I don't like what I made.
Yeah, if it's painful,
Yeah.
then we're choosing something that has to do with time and space as being our identity.
Yeah.
And this idea of what's eternal is what never changes. And that's what's real.
Yeah.
So this course, being a course in miracles, is asking us to transcend our belief that time and space and the laws of time and space are inviolate.
Yeah.
And it's saying only the laws of God are inviolate. And that is that love is all there is. Love extends and expands infinitely.
See, that was what we talked about this morning. God's law is love extends infinitely, but without change.
Right.
And he's saying we can't understand how it can extend infinitely and yet not change.
Yeah.
But that's what he's saying. That's just your imagination that you
Mhm.
violated God's law, because the law is there to protect you. It's for your safety.
And it's a law, like we say, the law of gravity. It's not like you could disobey it.
Right. So remember in 7 where he said, this is the law of God. This is the law of the kingdom, that love extends infinitely without change. But having denied that, then the Holy Spirit has to adapt that law to what you project you will believe,
Mhm.
and therefore just extend the miracle, and then you'll believe in the miracle. So he has to work with the fact that we made perception and projection, and then use it positively.
Any other comments on this paragraph? There's a lot in there. Okay. Connie, could you read paragraph 2, please?
God created nothing beside you, and nothing beside you exists, for you are part of him. What except him can exist? Nothing beyond him can happen, because nothing except him is real. Your creations add to him as you do, but nothing is added that is different, because everything has always been. What can upset you except the ephemeral? And how can the ephemeral be real if you are God's only creation and he created you eternal? Your holy mind establishes everything that happens to you. Every response you make to everything you perceive is up to you, because your mind determines your perception of it. Well, Oh God, this is really made for me. I'm in a space where yesterday I was totally like, I've been anxious and upset for a few days, and I said, what is it? January is nothing. And then I remembered that it was this week in January, 60 years ago, that Ray and I met. And so I went, and I'm so lucky. I have all these marriage encounter letters, and I went and read those letters, and I realized that I'm the same. Like I found this thing we wrote. We used to do these presentations in our little group, and on my spirituality and my relationship with God. And I was like, oh my God, it's the same. Like, I'm still not at the same place,
Right.
but on the same thinking that I was before with God. And today I was thinking, oh, I feel so good today. What is it? And I thought, well, yesterday it was all me. I made it up. My body everything was coming from the way my body felt. It was so weird. And I was like, so I made it all up. It's like, it didn't really, it's like what it was saying in this paragraph. And then reading letters from 30 years ago where, all the upsets and the concerns that we had were related to children and work and all this stuff that has no meaning now. It's like, it's just so funny. It's like, it's the only thing that was consistent was the spiritual God relationship part. And it was so, I don't know, so like, it was aha, but it was like, oh yeah, I know that. That's what I know. And it was kind of surprising to see that I even had those feelings back then. I don't remember them. So it's time. What is time? It's all
Very interesting.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of these sentences in this paragraph went like, what? Or maybe you'd like to have a comment about them. Anyone?
Well, sentence 7, that's the one that really, every response you make to everything you perceive is up to you because your mind determines your perception of it. That's the way it was for me yesterday. And what I decided was, I'm just going to be with it. It's just it's just there, but it doesn't mean it's bad or it's horrible or this is going to happen or that's going to happen. It's just, I know God is with me. I know God is love, and I'm just going to be with it.
Wow.
Very sweet.
Cook a lot of vegetables so I won't eat junk.
So to put sentence 6 and 7 together, your holy mind establishes everything that happens to you. That's one of the foundational ideas of the course. We have a split mind. There's knowing God and the oneness of everything. And then there's the fragmentation and the conflict that the ego engenders. So your holy mind establishes whether you're going to experience something wonderful or something threatening. We decide. And then we make a response to it. Every response you make to everything you perceive is also up to you because your mind determines your perception of it. We decide first, I'm going to see something threatening. Then we see something threatening and we have another opportunity, so to speak, to say, I'm going to just be at peace with this happening, or I'm going to fight it and be angry and be sad and disappointed or whatever.
And victimized.
So it starts with the hidden part of our mind, the dissociated part of our mind gets projected out, we see it, and then we respond to it.
So notice at the beginning of this paragraph, it's making metaphysical statements about reality,
Yeah, big time.
right? He created nothing but you. There's nothing, what can exist but God? Nothing can happen beyond him, and that you're part of him, and you've always been part of him. But then he switches to perception, because in the course it's saying projection makes perception.
Mhm.
And it's projection that lets us think that we're not responsible for what we're perceiving,
Right.
right?
Yes.
The very perception itself is caused by projection. And that's why we can get a hold of it, because we can say, is that what I want to project on the situation?
Is that what I want to feel?
Is that what I want to see and believe?
Mm-hmm.
So projection becomes, you can't really unlock the metaphysical stuff from the side. He's got to lay it out there. But then we can see I've got a handle on my perceptions because they come from projection.
Right. Yeah. And to go to the very beginning of this paragraph, nothing outside, God created nothing beside you, and nothing beside you exists. Well, then what am I? Right? I'm not what I think I am.
Yeah.
For you are part of him. And everybody else must be too. So if I'm attacking God. Dumb.
Well, and that's what he's always telling us. It's, you don't see that you're attacking reality or attacking God, because it seems like it's between you and the world around
Yeah.
you. Or the people
Yes,
around you.
exactly. That's how we've hidden God,
Yeah.
how we've hidden the Christ. Kathy, would you read paragraph 3 for us, please, and give us your comments?
Sure. God does not change his mind about you, for he is not uncertain of himself. It's pretty huge. And what he knows can be known because he does not know it only for himself. He created you for himself, but he gave you the power to create for yourself so you would be like him. And that is why your mind is holy. Can anything except the love of God? Can anything exceed the love can anything exceed the love of God? Can anything then exceed your will? It's pretty monumental.
Yeah.
Nothing can reach you from beyond it, because being in God, you encompass everything. Believe this and you will realize how much is up to you. When anything threatens your peace of mind, ask yourself, has God changed his mind about me? And then accept his decision, for it is indeed changeless, and refuse to change your mind about yourself. God will never decide against you, or he would be deciding against yourself.
Himself.
Himself, yes. So basically what it is like God's consistent, and the one that's doing all the ups and downs stuff is me. There you go. Has God changed his mind about me?
Do you want to share how you used that before?
I would. I thought I did it recently, but I'll tell the story. There was a person who was really behaving in a very in a way that I was initially accepting as an attack, and feeling attacked, and feeling I was getting depressed. And when I read this line, that changed everything.
Which line again?
Has God changed his mind about me? Because I realized that I was accepting her interpretation of who I am.
Right.
And God is saying, I'm a part of him. I'm a part of the whole. I am, to go back a couple sections, grandeur.
Yeah.
is my being, not the judgments of another person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is a practice. When anything threatens your peace of mind, ask yourself, has God changed his mind about me? Am I really vulnerable? Am I really small? Am I really separate from God?
Right.
And separate from other people and the world?
See, that's where projection really comes in, because our belief is we abandon love.
Mhm.
And then we project that onto God, that love has abandoned us, or that
Uh-huh.
God has abandoned us.
Mhm.
That's why it can switch, because we never really did abandon love
Right.
or God.
So to bring it back to that idea of time and eternity that it started out with, anything that's like, oh, you are such a bad person in any form, you know, you're stupid or you're selfish or you're whatever. That is a time constrained judgment.
Mhm.
That comes about because we say, well, that thing that happened in the past, I know what that means. That means you are blank. And then we define ourselves or another person as being small and not good enough,
Yeah,
just plain not good. Baloney. This is saying you're part of God and all of God. We encompass everything. And that is like not time dependent.
Right.
That's of eternity.
Right.
That's who we are. So the use of the word you in the course is, later on he says the precise language, you just can't pin it down precisely. Just do your best working with you, who you are, and know that when you judge yourself as being unworthy in any way,
right.
that's a mistake. That's not who we are.
So when he says here, realize how much is up to you here, this is like in the rules of decision. How do I get guidance from the Holy Spirit? How do I let love and wisdom guide me? That's where we have to break down our decision to something very simple. And it's two things. It's either going to be judgment or it's going to be forgiveness, right? And that's why we can make a powerful decision, because even if we still believe that our judgments are right, we can say, I don't feel good about this.
Right.
I don't really want this kind of judgment. I believe in it. Let me use forgiveness as my purpose. And then I can hear the Holy Spirit guide me,
right,
and call to me, do this, do that, or say this, or think this,
And forgiveness, to put it in this context, means recognizing that nothing is beyond us, that we have made up something that's not true and we can let go of it, that the time-dependent judgments are simply not true. That's the basis of forgiveness that the Course gives us. It's the whole idea of what's real and what's not real. Who you
So
really
sins 11,
are.
oh,
Go ahead.
sins 11, God will never decide against you, and he would be deciding against himself. That's really a superstition buster. I mean, there's not certain actions you need to do to get the approval of God. It's your
Right.
self-approval that you're striving for.
Right.
Yeah.
If you follow the teaching of the Course, even the most evil people or the most horrible situations that we can think about are not real. The evil is not real. The damage is not real. And so this is asking us to take a very big step within ourselves. And we do it little by little by doing the workbook, right? Little by little, each little tiny temptation to think a thought that causes us pain,
right,
is a mistake about the truth.
Yeah. And being careful in that situation, like if somebody's being abusive to you, right, is recognizing you're making it up. But the Course would never say to you, stay there and be abused, because it's unreal. So
no, and as a matter of fact, in the notes, which you could see in that expanded, annotated version of A Course in Miracles, he does say you're never expected to endure violence.
Yeah, or
So,
abuse.
or abuse like that.
So
yeah.
can I just bring up a practical challenge I'm having? I've had it for a while. I think I've brought it up before. Is everything that I've heard being discussed in the context of a personal relationship with someone else? Totally get it. But when I'm thinking about the political situation or the state of the world and climate change, or something that, all these other institutional or systemic things happening in the world, I really struggle with, do I just say, I don't understand what's happening and try and let it go and just let all things be as they are? what is the responsibility? And the person who confuses me all the time is Marianne Williamson, because she kept stepping into stuff and form. She's very involved in politics still. And she implores us to, look at this and try and change things for love. And I feel very conflicted about all of it, because I'm kind of thinking I need to get my mind straight first,
Right.
and let things happen in the world that are going to happen out of my control, because most of the things, like climate change and the political system and COVID are all out of my control. So sometimes I feel like I'm just like trying to be in denial, like, oh, you're just fooling yourself that you could be okay that there's COVID or something. So I really struggle with that. I just wonder how other people deal with that. Like I said, on a personal relationship where I can say, I had that conversation, or I have that perception of that person, and I can work on that. I don't know how to do that with these bigger things.
Well, here's what the Course is going to say about this in just a definitive sense. Is there's the event and there's the circumstance, and don't deny how you see it, but what you need to focus on is your reaction to it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if I react to that, if I see I'm reacting to that and I've lost my peace, and I'm feeling that I've lost my peace, then the issue becomes what I need to do in that moment. And then in that moment, you may be like Marianne Williamson and be directed to do various actions, like leave a relationship or change your job or something like that. But the key is I'm reacting to that situation. I'm experiencing something, because your reaction, you have complete control over. Whereas it doesn't seem as though we have complete control over events and time, and, when democracy returns to America or something. Our reactions, we always have control over. I'm not a body. I'm free. I'm still as God created me. Does that help?
It does. I just am confused about how much in form, I should be doing. And I just feel like sometimes I'm in denial, or I'm just kind of like, well, I'm going to just shut the TV off because I don't want to hear these people argue on TV. And is that like just denying it? But I think I agree with what you're saying. And I was just hoping that was right, that I need to get to my peace, and then something comes. Okay. Because I've just felt like, wait, am I supposed to be doing something? Am I just denying it? Or if I need to avoid something in form until I become more strong in my practice or my beliefs or my peace, I guess I've been feeling like that's a cop-out. Like, well, of course, if I pretend there's no COVID, I could be in peace. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like this, I know and believe that I can't fix anything in form, and I'm not ever gonna. This world is insane. So sometimes I just feel like, why pay attention? Because it's insanity, and just kind of get on with my daily business. And it doesn't mean I go and stay in bed all day, but I focus on what's in front of me instead.
Right. Yeah. I think, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, the lesson today seems to address this point. I think it says, there's no point in lamenting the world. There's no point in trying to change the world, which on the face of it seems like what Marianne Williamson was trying to do, but maybe I'm wrong. It is incapable of change because it is merely an effect. It's an effect of your own thinking, isn't it? That's what it's saying. But there is indeed a point in changing your thoughts about the world. Here you are changing the cause. The effect will change automatically.
Which means, by the way, the world will change.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what the Course is saying. There's a real world behind this, where you can either perceive love or cause for love. That's where it breaks down the decision. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, what Laura's bringing up, it's all very personal. How we're going to map onto that, and how we're going to behave, and that's what the training in the Course is. So each of us can reach that wisdom of the Holy Spirit, and then know, because people could go and help the world and be incredibly egotistic about that. So that's why it's so personal. That's why
Mm-hmm.
each of us has to develop that voice or to be able to hear
the
that voice.
Yes.
I interrupted you, Eric, and I didn't mean to do that.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay.
So, you know what someone else's guidance is, and even someone we admire for their course acumen,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that's your guidance. You know, it's always peace. It's always peace. So, you know, for some people, the peaceful thing is action. And that's fantastic. That's for them. The Course does not say form is all bad, the world is crazy forever. It's saying we can transform the world, but we transform it by the transforming of our mind.
Right. And I think it's come up in recent texts and maybe some of the lessons at the end of last year, but the world is in my mind.
Yes.
The only way I can change it is by my thoughts. So I kind of just keep getting confused by projections, right? It's like, I know I made this, so I need to fix it, but it's fix it here.
That's the only place. That's the
Yeah.
only place. And,
Okay.
and I think that we individual, let me speak for myself. I have to recognize what disturbs my peace, and not my sleeping kind of peace, not my forgetting kind of getting lost in shopping kind of peace. I mean, what disturbs my relationship with God is, you know, anxiety, worry about things in the world. And I have the same list you have, Laura. And it's like, how much am I feeding myself anxiety? And when things, so that would be like, you know, reading a lot of news, that kind of thing. Be afraid, be very afraid. You know, that's what's in the news. Okay, that's over there. I do not need to go there. When something comes into my awareness that I'm called upon to respond, I'll ask the Holy Spirit, where should I go? What should I do? What should I say and to whom? Those are actions in form. Those are actions in the world, but it's going to be personal to me. And I just don't have to go looking for problems. There's enough.
Yeah. I think too that I feel I struggle with guidance as well. So I'm always, I guess the ego is kind of like, but shouldn't you do something?
Yeah.
But
Right.
shouldn't you? Yeah. And I think what the theme for me over the past few months, where it's been a real struggle for me lately, is forget just trying to master everything and fix everything and get back to being in peace and joy in this moment. And then things should fall in place. And it's kind of like, I don't 100% believe it. So I'm trying to practice it little and little, but I think I'm overcomplicating it because it turns into analysis. And that's when you know that you're lost.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The analysis always goes back to who did what when and what could happen in the future.
Yeah.
Right.
Connie, did you want to say something?
And it's also coming from there's something wrong.
Yeah.
There's something wrong. And that's not what the Course teaches. So yeah, so it's, yeah. And the other thing I'd say is for myself, I see there are two things. One, I read a book a couple of years ago for a course I was in by someone from England who wasn't English, about, I forget what the title is, but it's like the whole history. If you look at the history of the world, things are so much better now than they've ever
yeah.
been.
Steven Pinker.
And so that's the big perspective. And the other thing for me is, you know, there was a point and I think I said this earlier in looking at the marriage encounter letters, my focus 20 years ago was so different than my focus now. And I have all these beliefs about injustice. That's been something that's been through my whole life. And at certain points in my life, I took a lot of action about that. I worked in the area, I changed things, I did things. And now I'm done, I'm not. And it's all okay. You know, it's what brings me peace at the moment.
Because when you have peace, you are expanding your mind to encompass God and the Christ of everyone. And that is what changes the world.
Right.
Yeah.
It's much big, you know, it's like only from the ego's point of view is the world full of discrete items, discrete people. Everything is different. There's lots of moving parts. From God's point of view, and this section that we just read, everything that's real is in God. And moving our minds out of ego thinking into our true self, that is what changes the world, because we'll see it from God's point of view. And from God's point of view, there is no conflict.
Yeah.
There's no loss. There is no war. I know that's a big thought from what we've been taught.
But it's that let there be
Lesson
peace,
14.
let there be peace, and
Yeah.
let it begin with me.
There you go.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, you could be an anti-war activist and angry as hell and hating the enemy and all of that. I mean, that's why Gandhi was so effective and Martin Luther King, because Gandhi said, look, I don't accept that I'm your slave. I'm not going to let you land that on me. And since it didn't land, since he, did not accept England making India be enslaved, he had the peace to be able to make real changes because he changed his mind. I mean, that's a perfect example of changing your mind. And then, because to me, I can't, this is why when I practice in the morning, my first thing is to try and just make my mind at peace, because I can't hear love
Right.
if my mind's not at peace. I just can't.
This is a wonderful discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you, Laura.
No,
I
thank
think
you.
I think we all have this question that keeps on coming up.
Yeah.
What's my role in the world?
And my solution for Jan was,
Okay, show it. Lion and lamb. He's telling me I'm too much of a lion. Be gentle with the lamb. The
other one-
lions are perfect when they tear the antelopes apart. I mean,
Yeah.
what can I tell you?
the other one I got her 3 years ago was a kitty just laying down.
That's right. Relax. Okay.
I'm laughing because Ray used to always tell me, I don't understand why you have to always be doing something.
Yeah, some of
Get
us
a lot
do.
done just sitting and being.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's saying sitting and being is a very high state, but some of us just aren't there yet.
I know.
Acting in form, and that's what we should be doing, Okay.
Both.
Both. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So At Home in God is the next section, and it's only 4 paragraphs. So let's see what we could find here. Let's see who did not read yet. Laura.
So, at home in God, you do not know your creation simply because you would decide against them as long as your mind is split, and to attack what you have created is impossible. I've always wondered what my creations are, so that's why I don't know. But remember that it is as impossible for God. The law of creation is that you love your creations as yourself because they are part of you. Everything that was created is therefore perfectly safe because the laws of God protect it by his love. Any part of your mind that does not know this has banished itself from knowledge because it has not met its conditions. Who could have done this but you? Recognize this gladly, for in this recognition lies the realization that your banishment is not of God and therefore does not exist. So the first thing that comes to mind is that I confuse the ego with my creations. So I'm like, look at this beautiful ego I made, this persona and this whole thing and all that I've achieved in material world. And it's sometimes hard to be like, it's nothing, it means nothing. And the longer that I focus on it and try to continue to grow it, you know, it's just the longer that I'm going to stay in a split mind. But I resonate with like, so, and I think it's important to, you know, that we look at where it uses the words create and creation. I don't think it uses made, but, you know, we made the ego or we made the persona, but our creations are eternal because they're of love. Although I don't know that it's always really obvious to us what that is.
Right.
There is somewhere that I guess Jesus tells us that everything that is, you know, beautiful and of love is saved for us, right? It's almost like the lilies that we'll have. But I don't always know what that is or what those are. So.
But, you know, when he says part of the answer is it's these other people because he's saying that God created you as a creator, but you as a creator are the one self. Mm-hmm. And so our creations are what we do in joining others.
That would be a reflection of creation.
Forgiveness is a reflection, but that's why forgiveness is mutual. Why it's not just about me, it's it's also about the others that I share forgiveness with or that I extend forgiveness with.
So I think another way of saying what you're saying here is somebody gave me this little clue to remember what my creations are, is every loving thought.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it could be every thought of beauty, every thought of kindness. It's like when I see you as a loving being, or like Connie saw herself as the same being 30 years ago that she is now, that's the kind of creation that we are. We are a thought of God, right? That's what we are. We're a thought. We're not a body. We're spirit. We're a thought of God. So when we see anyone else with love and as spirit, we're acknowledging our creations. But apparently we're doing it all the time. I mean, there's some things that as long as we're in perception, we're just not going to get a real handle on. Yes. We can get a clue about it. That I think is what it's saying there.
Yeah. You know, the in sentence 3, the law of creation is that you love your creations as yourself.
There you go.
Because they're part of you. Mm-hmm. So we can see that with family relationships, like, you know, or my particular tribe or something. We feel like we have more love for family and for tribe, those who we identify with.
Right.
But it really is everybody is part of us because we are just that one self.
Nobody is excluded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I guess the point of that is just to say God would know more banish you than you would banish your loving creations.
Right. Yep. Right. That whole idea of banishment always reminds me of the story of the Garden of Eden. You know, we think, and it can be a really helpful mythology, a very helpful story, that we think that God cast us out because we chose judgment, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Oh, that's judgment. Oh, this is good. That's bad. As soon as we did that, we judged ourselves as wrong. But by doing it, we decided God was wrong because it's just a story. Mm-hmm. But the main thing is God did not banish us. We ran out of the Garden of Eden out of fear of God.
Yeah.
That's the real story. And this is calling us back. Do you know the prodigal son is the most referenced Bible story in A Course in Miracles? It's referenced many times. Twice the story is told, but then there are a lot of little quotes also that you know, refer back to it.
Yeah.
So we're not banished.
Yeah.
Your banishment is not of God and therefore does not exist. We still live in God. There's nothing outside of God. We are not outside of God.
So the practical aspect of the paragraph is 1:6. Who could have done this but you? Right.
I am doing it myself.
And that's to me, that phrase is the big turnaround. This isn't being done to me, it's being done by me.
Right. And it's unconscious. That is what we are recognizing when we look at our projections, we look at the story we're telling ourselves, we recognize how we feel, and we say, I want a new way of seeing this. I'm determined to see this differently. Then it begins to open up the channels to that unconscious level where we made a decision to attack so that it would look like we're being attacked.
Right.
It's a story of separation.
You know, and I can see this in my interpersonal relationship, especially with somebody as close as I am to Jan. And I know it's a choice. I can focus on certain things about her, or I can focus about other sorts of things. But if I focus on what I perceive as unloving, I'm banishing you from creation.
And therefore yourself.
And therefore myself.
Right.
So what am I going to focus on in those people? And you know, the Holy Spirit again breaks it down to very simple. It's either love or a call for love. You know, and that's how we can always, no matter how the behavior is or the seeming bad situation, if we interpret it as a call for love and see that being answered by the Holy Spirit, then what else will we experience but love?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all there is. Any other thoughts on that first paragraph? Well, let's have Eric read 2, if you would.
Okay. You are at home in God, dreaming of exile, but perfectly capable of awakening to reality. Wow. Perfectly capable. Doesn't seem like we're perfectly capable, does it? It feels like we're helpless and we need help to to awaken. But that's not what it's saying, is it? It's saying you're perfectly capable of awakening if you want to.
Right.
Is it your decision to do so? Clearly not, otherwise we would do. You recognize from your own experience that what you see in dreams you think is real while you are asleep. Yet the instant you waken, you realize that everything that seemed to happen in the dream did not happen at all. You do not think this strange, even though all the laws of what you awakened to were violated while you slept. Is it not possible that you merely shifted from one dream to another without really waking? I mean, that's almost exactly what it says in the section about the sleeping dream and the waking dream, isn't it? That you're aware of your sleeping dream, and that you can accept that when you wake up that things are different and they don't work like they do in the waking dream. But you don't realize that the same mind that is creating the sleeping dream is creating the waking dream as well. It's all coming from your subconscious, as you were just saying. And you're creating what you see in the world, just like you create what you see in your dreams when you're asleep. And that's not always that easy to accept.
Right.
Because as we've just been saying before, the stuff that happens in the world seems so real, and it seems so out of our control. When it isn't. The Course is saying very clearly it's not out of your control. Very much in your control.
I like it that you emphasized that we do have the decision. We're perfectly capable of awakening to reality. The fact that we still exist in the mind of God, in love. Is it your decision to do so? I think we make that decision for, yes, I do want to wake up every time we do our practice. You know, every time we take the painful thought and say, well, that can't be real. Every time we drop into one of these practices, even the one like we just ran across here in the text, has God changed when anything threatens your peace of mind, ask yourself, has God changed his mind about me? That's a practice. If you do that, you are making a decision to remember.
Mhm.
And we're waking ourselves up.
And that's a classic type of argument is by analogy here, because we can see this obviousness that what we are dreaming is false. And
Yeah,
then that gives us at least the possibility
Right.
to question the reality of this.
right.
It's not specifically in here, but this is another example of why we give our concepts to the Holy Spirit, because what Jesus is saying is this idea of death is deeply embedded in us, and we believe that we're going to die or be over, but really we believe that we killed our true self. So this idea of death is in our minds constantly. So what the Course is saying is give that concept of death to the Holy Spirit, and he'll translate it to your sleeping. So death is no longer a reality, it's sleep instead of
And it's
believing
not
in
real.
death. So if I believe I'm sleeping, then I have the possibility of waking up instead of
Mhm.
believing in the end of myself through death.
And that comes back to time, which we started in the introduction. Time and eternity are both in your mind and will conflict until you perceive time solely as a means to regain eternity.
Yeah,
So it's like in eternity, we are there, one with every being,
right,
one with God. And that is love. That is
right.
the only thing that's real.
And it's death that causes this anxiety
Right.
in life here. It's like, will I have
COVID.
enough time? Will I finish? Will I be able to do? Will I be enough? All that sort of anxiety. And that's why it's just important to say at that point, I've just fallen asleep. I'm just asleep to who I truly am.
And everything that scares us is time dependent and death related.
Yeah. And there is no
We
death.
started
Connie,
and we're going to end.
what were you going to say, Connie?
I have a question. So I'm in listening, hearing what you're saying, I'm thinking, is this true? That the whole teaching of the Course is just what you said, that it's all in me. I am still part of the mind of God, and anything outside in the real, in this world that we're in, that anyone says or does or whatever, doesn't change. And I, for myself, the Course has taught me that it's all in me.
Yes.
The
power of decision is in you.
Right.
You can decide for ego thinking, or you can decide for what he's saying here and what you just said.
Right. And I had in another, I mentioned my marriage encounter thing. I was looking at this thing about the Corinthians, 1 through 12, through a glass darkly. And I was reminded of an experience I had early in life when I was in church, and we had this huge stained glass round window. And I was, troubled and reaching out to Spirit and really feeling Spirit was there. And one day, it must have been a night service, I went to church, and that glass window was just black.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh, it's all how I see it. It's not what really is real or what's there. It's how I see it. And I really believe that that's the whole thing of the Course.
Yeah. I think so too.
God was still there when the light wasn't on that window. I was still connected and everything, but I saw that and it was like, what? So anyway.
Thank you.
And, notice, like, especially in this workbook that we're doing now, very much at the beginning, he's saying to us, watch all day long your thoughts, and watch now for when the attack thoughts come up, because that's what depression is that it's accumulation of a bunch of feelings that we didn't deal with, and then it just turns into a mood, like I'm depressed. So that it's a big thing. We're changing our whole ideas about creation, about time. But the grace of the course is I can do it a little bit at a time. I can go to the store and I'm frustrated because somebody cut in line with me. I got the ability to look at that differently.
Mhm.
And then we just build up our strengths
Right.
until we really just make that big turn.
Yeah. Yep.
That's very gentle way.
And even as we make those little decisions, day by day, hour by hour, we are getting the benefit of it.
Yeah.
We feel better.
Mhm.
So we don't have to wait until, the end to get the benefit of choosing to think this way.
Yeah. I can have peace now.
Yeah. So let's see. Whose turn is it? Connie's, I think. Go for it, Connie.
Would you bother to reconcile what happened in conflicting dreams, or would you dismiss both together if you discovered that reality is in accord with neither? You do not remember being awake. When you hear the Holy Spirit, you may feel better because loving then seems possible to you, but you do not remember yet that it was so. And it is in this remembering that you will know it can be so again. What is possible has not yet been accomplished, yet what has once been is so now, if it is eternal. When you remember, you will know that what you remember is eternal and therefore is now. Well, it sounds hopeful because I'm not there yet. I don't mean, but I'm hoping and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. For sure.
Well, every time we dip down into the holy instant, we're going to the eternal truth.
Right.
Every time we suspend our belief in good and evil, threat, our negative emotions having some truth value, every time we suspend that for just an instant, we are going to the place where we are eternal and one with love.
And, at the beginning, in that first paragraph where it was say time and eternity are both in your mind, is like, what do you mean eternity's in my mind? But that's what he's saying here is that the analog of eternity is the present moment.
Yes.
And that's where you can make a change.
Right. It's like a window into the holy instant is like a window into eternity. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I think my window's open.
That's enough.
Little.
Yeah.
It's enough. It's like if you just open the door to another room and you see that there is a room there, and then you close the door, you're not going to forget. Yeah. Okay, so Kathy, would you finish this up for us, please?
Okay. You will remember everything the instant you desire it wholly. For if to desire wholly is to create, you will have willed away the separation, returning your mind simultaneously to your creator and your creations. That is a hell of a statement.
I think it's a heaven of a statement.
A heaven of a statement. Yeah, it's big. It's got, it's huge. Knowing them, you will have no wish to sleep, but only the desire to awaken and be glad. Dreams will be impossible because you will want only truth, and being at last your will, it will be yours. I believe this statement. I just don't know how to get there. I'm trying. I know it's a work in progress, but it's
yes.
But I believe it now, which is different than before.
Yeah, that is progress.
And we do know, because when we do the workbook practice or we accept any of these ideas, even temporarily, we're teaching ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we do know how to get there.
So just
Go ahead.
Does the course, when I read that, I it must be my Catholic thing. I think, well, when I die, then I'll totally.
Right, then we'll get it.
No, it doesn't say it that way.
No,
We can act. I mean, Jesus did it in his lifetime, and he actually says the last lesson he learned, blah blah blah, which implies that he was in a learning curve himself.
Yeah.
While on earth. So, okay, it's not going to happen. And it also says nothing happens when you die. You know, you take yourself with you. Yeah. So I think the key here is the wholly willing. WHOLLY. Wholly willing. I don't want anything of earth. Well, I know I still do.
Mhm.
I'm very attached and attracted to what's here. And specifically, I must still be attracted to separation.
Yeah, but if I'm upset with all this stuff that I was attracted to, if I'm upset, what he's saying in that very moment,
Yes,
if what you want is only that holy instant, it
Yeah.
will be yours
yes,
in that moment. I mean, that's the claim of the holy instant, that the conflict will, with that, the conflict will be resolved right now,
right.
and you'll have peace.
And it does. I
You'll
think
have
we've all had
contentment.
experience with
I mean,
that.
we wouldn't be doing this if
If
we
it-
hadn't experienced
If it
that.
didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it goes back to that idea of not being worried about the end of time or that I'm going to die. I'm just sleeping
Mhm.
and I want to wake up.
Right.
You know, that gets rid of this. You know, the Course is pretty clear that once you've accepted this purpose of forgiveness, the purpose of accepting the atonement for yourself, that you'll have all the time that you need to do it.
Right.
You know, and that'll get into whether you believe in reincarnation or not. But he's just claiming we need not be anxious. If we haven't learned it enough, or we've only learned it a little enough, we've accepted this purpose, and that's enough. And we will be given all the time we need. Which, if you think about that, that gets rid of about 99% of the anxiety that we experience in the world. Like, I'm running out of time.
Mhm.
Hurry, 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 worry, 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 hurry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll have all the time we need. That's the claim. I think rather than go ahead, this is probably.
Oh, we
a good
don't have time
yeah,
to go
probably a
ahead
good
with the
time.
next section. Yeah, we'll do that next week. Any last thoughts? This has been a really wonderful conversation.
Yeah, very good.
The first line of the third paragraph was what stuck with me. Would you bother to reconcile what happened in conflicting dreams, or would you dismiss both together if you discovered the reality is in accord with neither? So, I mean, we can have this idea that, well, this is the right way of doing things, or this is how it should be, and somebody else is doing it differently. It's like one of us has got to be wrong.
Yeah.
But we can both be wrong, and it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah.
That's what it's saying, isn't it? You can dismiss both, forget them both, because neither of them you're right. It doesn't matter.
They're both wrong. And that's where our fearlessness comes in. When we recognize that this is not real. I'm spirit, so is everyone else. I'm in the mind of God, so is everyone else. Love is available to me now, and I can extend it to those who are believing in the dream. Fearlessness comes from that. And from that, we'll be guided into action. But if we're acting from fear, I'm afraid of climate change, I'm afraid of COVID, I'm afraid of people having guns, I'm afraid of all of these horrors that are showing up. They're no worse than a person who lives in a place where there's mosquitoes carrying malaria being afraid of a mosquito. Really, it's all the same thing. Am I spirit or am I a body? Is time controlling me and everyone else? And I've got to be anxious about death and all of that stuff of dissolution? Or are we at home in God?
Yeah.
Let's make a decision.
Now, let me stop the recording.
Okay, we're going to stop the recording now and just talk. Find out about our other classes, both live and recorded, and our retreats in Sedona. Here's our addresses. Get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you.